Hello again, this is me, AZC2. Today I'd like to talk about the Raffles Institution student whose food panda rider disguise at Racial Harmony Day appears to have backfired. The student had donned a mask that resembled an African American person, along with a food panda uniform which ruffled feathers nationwide. Many people thought it was a form of racial stereotyping of various occupations, and he was later forced to apologize by the school principal. It doesn't matter whether or not he had any evil intent, or if he meant it as a joke, or if he has any friends of other races. It was seen as insensitive and going against woke ideology, and therefore he had to back down. The response seems to be muted compared to the previous time when MediaCorp artist Dennis Zhou donned brownface in a series of television commercials. The strongest response to that ad campaign came from Pretty Please and her brother Subhas Nair, who made a rap song K Mutusami, which was lambasted as racially insensitive and against the law, even though many of us, who were supposed to take offense, saw the funny side of it and thought the government's response was heavy-handed. The government's response was that K Mutusami would create tensions between Chinese community and others, because the person being lambasted by the K Mutusami music video happened to be a Chinese. Back then, I felt the only people who would be offended by K Mutusami would be those aligned with the Chinese Communist Party, of which there are many residing in Singapore. Maybe that's why the response to the RI incident is somewhat muted, because that person wearing the African mask and a food panda uniform is a Chinese student. This brings me back to the grilling of TikTok CEO Chiu Shouzi by Senator Tom Cotton last year, in which he was questioned whether or not he was a member of the Chinese Communist Party. While he vehemently denied that, stating that he's a Singaporean and therefore can't be a member of any foreign political party, Senator Cotton went on to say that the Singapore government was heavily compromised by Chinese influence. This may explain why Pretty Please and Subhas were dealt with so severely. It's quite possible that the People's Action Party may be infiltrated by elements with ties to Chinese intelligence. With the election coming in less than a year, we should take the cue from that and vote the PAP out and vote in a minority coalition government relying heavily on the Singapore Democratic Party for supply and confidence. The SDP stands for freedom, and its platform aligns heavily with the American right, which is the way forward for us. if we want to see progress. Now, if Donald Trump had met the same fate as John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the person to replace him on the Republican ticket should be Tom Cotton himself, given how heavily anti-CCP that Tom Cotton is. Having Tom Cotton as president might have worked out in Singapore's favor, for all we know. We should take the events, starting with the K. Muthuswamy video, to the grilling of Chiu Shou-zi, to the recent muted response to the blackface fiasco at Raffles Institution, and search for a common thread. And the common thread is that the Singapore government is heavily compromised by Chinese influence, which is a bad thing, because our sovereignty is at stake. So, the only way for us to protect that sovereignty is to vote in a ruling party who will conduct mass deportation of Chinese citizens from the country. While I wouldn't expect the SDP to have such a radical agenda high on their priority, the fact that they believe in American values is more than enough to vote them in. Those living in areas contested by the SDP should vote SDP, especially if you are in Marsiling UT-GRC helmed by Prime Minister Lawrence Wong. What the SDP should do is to field their strongest team in Marsiling UT-GRC. They should place their heavyweights like Dr. Chee Soon-juan and Dr. Paul Thambaya and Brian Lim as the lead candidates in the Marsiling UT-GRC. If I were a resident of Marsiling UT-GRC, I would vote for the SDP team. Even if I were out of the country, I would fly back in, vote SDP, and fly back out again. So, Singaporeans, take heart and vote wisely when the election looms. Goodbye for now.